Picture this. It's the night of February 3rd, 2026. You're in the middle of the Arabian Sea. It is vast, it is dark, it is quiet. And then, out of that darkness, an Iranian Shahed-139 drone appears. And it's not just passing by. It's flying straight for a single, massive point of light and steel out on the water. The U.S. aircraft carrier, the USS Abraham Lincoln. Now, according to U.S. Central Command, this drone's approach wasn't just curious, it was aggressive. And nobody knew what it was trying to do. Radio warnings went out, attempts were made to get it to turn away, but nothing. It just kept coming. So a decision had to be made, and it had to be made fast. An F-35C Lightning II, basically a ghost in the night, launches from the carrier's deck, and just like that, shoots the drone right out of the sky. On paper, that sounds almost simple, right? A multi-billion-dollar warship up against a pretty cheap drone. But that headline, it completely misses the real story here. What happened that night wasn't really a contest of firepower. No, it was a confrontation with pure uncertainty. It was a test of just how much ambiguity a commander can live with when they've got the lives of over 5,000 Americans in their hands. Okay, so let's really get into this. In this explainer, we're going to go inside the story of the USS Abraham Lincoln. We're going to talk about its incredible cost, its unbelievable capabilities, and what this one little drone incident actually tells us about the very nature of power here in 2026. So, first things first, why should you even care about one ship thousands of miles from home? Well, because if you're in the United States, this ship isn't some abstract concept. It's a real representation of American people, American industry, and American strategy, all packed into one sovereign piece of territory that's moving across the globe. I mean, let's just start with the sheer scale of the thing. The ship itself, over 1,000 feet long. It's a Nimitz-class supercarrier that can move faster than most commercial vessels, and it carries a whole air force on its back, about 65 state-of-the-art aircraft. But this isn't just about steel and jet fuel. It's really about the human element. We're talking about a crew of over 5,000 sailors and aviators. That is basically a small town living and working on a floating airfield, often for 7 months, sometimes even longer. It's a town that has its own hospital, its own barbershops, a post office, all of it powered by 2 nuclear reactors. And the cost? Well, this slide gives you an estimate. $13 billion, and that's just for the ship and its air wing. That's the initial investment from taxpayers. That's before you even start to think about the massive ongoing costs for training, fuel, spare parts, and all the maintenance it takes to keep this floating city running. And where it operates? Well, that's directly tied to our economic interests back home. This carrier was specifically moved into a region that connects to a very real anxiety for a lot of us. The price of gas, and the stability of pretty much everything we buy that gets shipped around the world. See, the key thing to remember is that about a fifth of the entire world's petroleum has to pass through the nearby Strait of Hormuz. So any disruption there, it doesn't just stay local. It sends ripples through global markets, it affects inflation, it messes with supply chains. So when a U.S. carrier is operating there, it's not just for show. It's acting like an economic pressure valve, there to make sure commerce keeps flowing freely. A lot of people think of an aircraft carrier as this single, super powerful weapon, but that's not really right. A carrier is more like the heart of a complex, moving system, a whole group of assets that are all interconnected and have to work together perfectly. So let's break down what that system actually looks like. Okay, let's get into the pieces. First, you've got the airfield. That's the carrier itself, the USS Lincoln or CVN-72. Then you've got the combat power. That's the air wing. Carrier Air Wing 9 or CVW-9, and we'll talk more about them in a minute. Protecting both of them is the shield, a whole screen of guided missile destroyers and cruisers that are on the lookout for threats from the air, the surface, and even under the water. And finally, keeping this whole thing going is the lifeline, a massive chain of supply ships that brings in all the fuel, food, and parts they need. And this is so important because carrier power isn't just about the ship, it's about how fast this entire system can sense a potential problem, figure out what it means, and then act on it, all before that little problem can turn into a big one. And that is exactly what the February 3rd drone incident was. It was a direct, real-time test of this whole system's ability to see, decide, and act, all while under serious pressure. If there is one place that makes a carrier just feel completely real, it has to be the flight deck. We're talking about 4.5 acres of what can only be described as controlled chaos. You've got 4 steam-powered catapults to fling aircraft into the sky and 5 thick arresting wires to snatch them back out of it when they return. It is, without a doubt, one of the most dangerous workplaces on the entire planet. The physics going on here are just wild. A catapult launch takes a 50,000-pound jet and accelerates it from 0 to over 160 miles per hour in less than 3 seconds. It's just gone. Then, an arrested landing brings that same jet from flying speed to a dead stop in just a few hundred feet. A tailhook on the plane has to catch one of those steel cables. It is an incredibly violent, but incredibly precise process that they repeat day and night. So here's the key takeaway. A carrier doesn't just have power, it actively manufactures it. With every single safe launch and every single safe recovery over and over again, it's generating the ability to influence events happening hundreds of miles away. And you've probably seen footage from a flight deck and wondered about all these different colored jerseys people are wearing, right? They are absolutely not for show. It's a highly organized system that's designed for total clarity in an environment that's full of jet blast, engine roar, and constant dangerous movement. Each color means something specific, something critical. The yellow shirts, they're the aircraft directors, basically choreographing this whole dangerous ballet on the deck. Blue handles the heavy lifting, moving planes around with these little tractors. Purple, they're called grapes, and they're in charge of all the fuel. Green runs the catapults and the arresting gear. Red handles all the bombs and missiles. And the brown shirts are the plane captains and technicians, the ones responsible for the aircraft themselves. The whole system is just built around safety and process. On that flight deck, your authority comes from your qualification and knowing your job inside and out, not from the rank on your collar. An 18-year-old in a green jersey has absolute say over the launch of a multi-million-dollar jet flown by a senior officer. Why? Because that kind of process discipline is the only thing that prevents disaster out there. Okay, so we've talked about the stadium, the ship itself. Now let's talk about the team that actually plays in it. Carrier Air Wing 9. This is the teeth of the whole operation. This is the reason the carrier exists in the first place. The Air Wing is really like a toolbox with a bunch of specialized tools for different jobs. You've got the F-35C, which brings stealth and sensors that are just on another level. The F/A-18 Super Hornets are the workhorses. They provide the numbers and the flexibility for a huge range of missions. Then there's the EA-18G Growler, which is fascinating. It doesn't really fire missiles. Its job is to attack the invisible battlefield of the electromagnetic spectrum, jamming enemy radar and communications. The E-2D Hawkeye is like the quarterback in the sky, an airborne command center that sees everything for hundreds of miles. And the MH-60 helicopters are there for hunting submarines and, crucially, for search and rescue. When you put all of these assets together, you're turning all that steel and nuclear power into a whole menu of options for the commanders. And these are options they can choose to use, or, just as importantly, options they can choose not to use to keep a situation from escalating. But modern warfare isn't just about what you can see anymore. It is increasingly being fought on an invisible battlefield of sensors, data links, and guidance systems. And this is exactly where planes like the Growler come in. Electronic warfare is all about messing with an enemy's ability to see you, to talk to each other, or to guide their weapons. The really crucial point here is that blinding or confusing an adversary, making it so they just can't act effectively, can be just as decisive as dropping a bomb on them. Sometimes it's even more so. So, how did the USS Abraham Lincoln even end up in this specific spot at this specific time? Well, it wasn't random at all. It was the result of a very deliberate strategic shift. Let's just walk through this timeline nice and slow. In November 2025, the Lincoln leaves its home port of San Diego for what's supposed to be a routine deployment to the Western Pacific. In December, it makes a scheduled port visit in Guam. Then, in January 2026, the mission changes. The whole strike group gets redirected out of the Pacific and into the operational area of U.S. Central Command. That redirection, right there, is the moment everything changes for the crew. They're leaving a routine patrol and heading into a region where there's daily, real-world friction. By late January, they're doing standard flight operations in the Arabian Sea, and that leads them directly to the incident on February 3rd. And on that day, that Iranian Shahed-139 drone approached the carrier. And again, nobody knew what it was up to, and it just kept coming, even after being warned off. Out at sea, ambiguity is a type of danger. In an open sky, maybe you have time. But in a crowded maritime environment with an asset this valuable, waiting doesn't always make you safer. Sometimes, with every second that ticks by, it just eats away at your safety margin. So the question becomes, that is the question every single commander has to answer. In this case, a Marine Corps F-35C was launched and the drone was shot down. And then just a few hours later, in that same general area, Iranian forces harassed a U.S.-flagged merchant ship, a totally different vessel, but it's part of the same pattern of behavior we see in that region. What this all shows is that in 2026, a threat isn't always about overwhelming force. A lot of the time, it's about ambiguity. It's about creating uncertainty to test your responses, to probe for weaknesses. And aircraft carriers, these massive, complex systems, they're designed specifically to eliminate uncertainty, not to gamble with it. So let's pull back for a second and just give an honest assessment of what an aircraft carrier really represents in this day and age, looking at both its strengths and, yeah, its limitations. The strengths are pretty obvious. The ability to project sustained air power from the sea for weeks at a time, incredible strategic flexibility to just move anywhere in international waters, and mobility without ever having to ask another country for permission to use their runways. But there are also some pretty significant limits. The cost and maintenance are just enormous. There's a deep dependence on a healthy industrial base to build and repair them. And of course, a carrier is a highly visible asset. You can't exactly hide one of these things. And that brings us right back to the drone. A single drone cannot sink an aircraft carrier, let's be clear. But what it can do is force a decision. It can force a commander's hand and create an international incident literally out of thin air. And we can't ever forget the human reality of all this. The crew on this ship has been away from home for months. That means missed birthdays, missed anniversaries. It means seeing the birth of your child over a spotty internet connection. It means long, grueling, exhausting days in a workplace where the tiniest mistake could be fatal. So the final rationale, it really comes down to this. A commander who is responsible for this floating concentration of American power and American people, they're not asking, can this little drone actually hurt us? No, they are asking a much, much more important question. What happens if we're wrong? And that right there is the absolute core of this whole thing. In modern conflict, uncertainty itself becomes the threat. The response on February 3rd, it wasn't emotional, it wasn't panicked, it was procedural. The goal was simply to remove a dangerous variable from the equation before it had any chance of becoming a catastrophe. And that right there, that's what modern military power actually looks like in practice.